I am online. Okay, guys, we'll call the meeting to order. Thank you. Councillor Tweel, we have permission to, as long as we're sitting in chamber, not to have to wear a mask full time, but if you do get up from your desk, it's just a reminder to everyone that we will have to put our mask back on, okay? So we'll move into declarations of conflict of interest. Is there any? Seeing none. I have an approval of our agenda.
I want to add something, please, to the agenda. Under open,
And then open.
it's a monument for hockey legends in connection to, it's in Kirkland, Ontario.
So you just want to provide an update on that? Is everybody okay with that?
Sure.
Yeah, okay, thank you. We have that under F.
If I
Yes?
may, Chair, is there any news about Confederation Center? Is that part of your report?
Sorry, say that again.
Confederation Center for Christmas time?
Yeah, what about it?
Is
That'll be
there any
enclosed.
in your report, or is that enclosed?
It's in the closed session.
Oh, it's in closed. Yeah, I'm sorry, I haven't had a chance to even read the closed.
Sorry.
My apologies.
No. Can we have our minutes for our open meeting of September 28th? If we can get
Do
a,
you have a copy? Do you have a hard copy?
there is a hard copy. Councillor Field, you come in on the podium there, I believe.
Oh,
Approval of the minutes. Someone to move that? Okay, moved by Councillor Cody, second by Councillor McLeod. Thank you. All those in favor of that? Thank you. Any business arising from those minutes? Seeing none, we'll move into our first discussion report, event management update.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll give you a few highlights. We have a full agenda today, so I won't take up too much of your time, but it's important to go through a few quick items. We very much are continuing to prospect and bid on events for future years, 2022, 23, 24. Down the road in the bidding world, the call for events has returned to a normal pace, although it's a different world out there how we conduct our business. Very much virtually these days and by the good old telephone. As the committee knows, we've sent a number of ongoing communications through emails throughout the last month or so. It's not to bombard you, but it's to keep you in the loop given the times that we are in and knowing that we weren't meeting before today. We also continue to update our calendar of events. It's basically tracking the impacts of events. So the events that we've lost in 2020 or 2021, we've resecured them for future years as well. So you'll continue to see that once a month or every couple of months. We'll continue to circulate that. The Sport Tourism Canada Bouncing Back report has been issued. Both Laurel, Lee, and myself worked on that national report, and we did circulate it to the committee. We continue to work with Event Atlantic, who's currently has an application for Tourism Atlantic funding right now through ACOA for the recovery of the Atlantic event sector and for the creation of a strategy. We're also working with FAME Festivals and Major Events Canada with respect to their efforts to secure federal funding for return to recovery and sustaining the industry moving forward. Just last week, we participated in the Sport Tourism Canada virtual event exchange. So we dealt with many national sport organizations online. There was an actual event created through our Sport Tourism Initiative SCORE. We were the title partner, so we had the opportunity to speak to the delegation to put up some promotional materials that others couldn't because we were a presenting partner. We have been attending a number of conferences, in fact a slew of them online, some of them very, very well done given that they are virtual. The International Festivals and Events Convention, the Sport Tourism Event Exchange that I spoke of, the Tourism Industry Association of Canada Conference, the Tourism Industry Association of PEI Conference. Lots of good learnings and opportunities there and real-time impacts that COVID is causing on the tourism industry as a whole. We're very busy now with holiday programming. It's been a huge amount of work this year because of CPHO requirements and approvals to move forward. The Wintertide Holiday Festival and the Charlottetown Christmas Festival both commenced this past weekend and will run for a number of weeks. Laura will give an update on one of the signature events that are there. The Christmas Parade presents Santa Claus Comes to Town. We also have this coming weekend the Victorian Christmas Market and the 2 Wintertide Holiday Festival concerts in support of the Salvation Army Christmas Kettle. We continue to work with Tourism PEI on potential options for fall winter event hosting. So these are annual events, just trying to save them. Obviously the impact of the bubble will have huge consequences with that, but it's also where national and provincial sport organizations, their regulations and protocols as well, but we're trying very hard knowing the impact that these events have on hoteliers, retailers, etc. during the winter shoulder tourism season. Working with Canada Games, obviously Council passed the letter of last week regarding our partnership in terms of an in-principle partnership. We're working on the cultural file, the cultural events that would be associated with the games and pre-events that lead into the competition. So nothing really new to report there. It's preliminary discussions at this point in time. And I'll talk a little bit about winter events in the next session of our agenda. So that's a quick highlight from my area.
Thank you. Is there any questions for Wayne at this time? We're good, thanks Wayne. All right, we'll move on to letter B, which is the tourism and culture update. Wow.
Yes, so I know that we've mentioned in previous meetings that since COVID has kind of made its presence known, we've taken much more of a team approach in our department. We have historically worked as a team, but we've done it more so over the last 6 or 7 months. So I'm not going to update on a lot of what Wayne already has, though we have all been working on it. As you mentioned, holiday programming is very busy right now. So with respect to the Charlottetown Christmas Parade Presents Santa Claus Comes to Town, friendly reminder, that's going to run November 30th to December 4th. So it starts next Monday and runs through the full week. Our routes actually went public just before this meeting. So if you have any questions from constituents about when it might be coming through your neighborhoods, you can direct them to the city's website, charlottetown.ca/Santa Tours, and each nightly route is posted up there along with just some qualifiers in terms of what neighborhoods will be going through on particular dates. So you'll find that helpful. All of council should have received an email invitation to participate in the convoy on the night that it's going through your ward. So we have heard back from most people. Councillor Twill, I'll just talk to you at the end to see if you have an interest, and if you're booked that night, that's totally fine.
No.
Okay. So there's 2 components of the parade that we deemed quite important that we needed to find a different concept to execute. So the first one is Canada Post would typically walk the route in advance of the parade and collect letters to Santa. They're not able to do that this year, obviously. So we engaged an artist and a builder, and we've installed a North Pole post office at Confederation Court Mall, adjacent to where Santa will be hosting his visits up in Center Court. So from today through December 6th, kids will be able to go over there and have a little bit of a magical experience in the North Pole Post Office, depositing their letters, and then we'll just make sure that they get to Canada Post so they can make their way to Santa for a response. We also are collecting non-perishable donations for the Upper Room Food Bank on the main level of the mall through the end of the Christmas festival, so through December 13th. And then we'll get those all to the food bank as well. We have done quite a bit of work back and forth with CPHO on Capital New Year, but it's on the agenda later, so I won't get into it right now. As Wayne mentioned, we've been quite busy with conferences, so in addition to what he has mentioned, I attended the Canadian Capital Cities Organization annual conference late last week. I know that currently Councillor Ramsey would, his committee would normally attend that conference. I understand he did have a conversation with Councillor Nankoff, and because there was some ongoing work from her previous role, he asked if she would attend that conference, which she did. So I understand she's preparing a report that will be circulated to council along with the agenda and some notes for everyone to learn what went on. But there was 2 really great keynotes, one from Paul Nursey, who is the CEO of Destination Greater Victoria. So he presented on how the pandemic is affecting the capital city visitor industry and how municipalities can kind of respond to that visitor industry as we kind of come out of the pandemic. And then also from Kent Waugh, who's working, he's an independent consultant that's working with Municipal World, but he presented on the state of Canadian municipalities amid COVID. So there was some good information that came out of that. We also presented on our own successes with the Island Games and then the Scarecrow Festival as well. And we've now adopted the strategic plan with Canadian capital cities and have begun identifying required operational planning and some potential initiatives for 2021. And somehow I got myself elected as secretary of the organization. I don't know how it happened, but apparently I will be the secretary on the national board till the next AGM, so that should be interesting. The Tourism Industry Association of PEI annual conference, everyone was invited to attend. I'm not sure if anyone got to log on, but the province kind of gave their state of the industry update during that. It is pretty dismal, unfortunately. We were looking to another record year pre-pandemic, but right now, while the numbers obviously won't be finalized until early in Q4, the room night sales are projected to be down more than 68% this year, so hotels are definitely hurting. The airport's hurting even more, projecting an 81% reduction in passenger traffic over last year. Cruise obviously down 100% with all of their visits canceled this year, and those are having devastating ripple effects into all other areas of tourism, whether it's restaurateurs or tour operators, transportation, things like that. So friendly reminder to support local when you can. They did praise the CPL bubble, though, your worship. They thought that it was a great outcome. And they're also really pushing, as we mentioned, fall and winter product development. So the consultant they had hired to go through the new kind of strategic plan that's been shelved for right now because it's not highly relevant. They've re-engaged them to look at what they can do in the fall and winter, because that's not typically a space that the province has played in. They really focus on kind of the core tourism season and then into fall flavors time. So that's new this year. On the culture front, both Wayne and I are working with Confederation Centre on a memorandum of agreement just to get the understanding that we have between our two organizations down on paper for succession purposes. They've gone through some staffing changeovers there, and we've realized that there's a lot of information that happens regularly that resides in heads of employees, so we're trying to get that down on paper. The Sir John A. file is progressing. There's updates on it later on this agenda, so I won't spend too much time on that. And then the Arts Advisory Board has also proposed some policy amendments and is working through trying to take some ideas out of the Imagine Charlottetown call for art ideas that they did back in the spring and move through to implementation hopefully next year on some of those projects. So more information will become known on that in the coming months, and that's all I have.
It's a whole lot. Thank you. They've been busy. Any questions for Laurel?
Laurel, on the Imagine
Yep.
workshop that was held at the Guild
Yep.
last year, I never saw the report. We participated
So,
in it.
yeah, so the Arts Advisory Board has been working on it, and what they've done over the fall is they've compiled all of the information categorically, so they have a good database, which they're planning to make public, of the ideas that have come in. And then the Arts Advisory Board is actually trying to select 3 to 5 projects that they may like to see advanced over the next couple of years, and they're planning to come forward during the budget process to council with some requests for funding to advance those for council to consider.
Okay. And then under the Canadian Premier Soccer League, I asked Wayne about the NBL, the National Basketball League. Are they looking at a bubble this year?
No,
Are they
we just received word, your worship, from Eastlink Center, who is their home venue, that there isn't a path forward and there will not be a league this coming season.
Oh, are there other teams in that same situation in the league?
Well, there would be, because half the league is based out of Ontario.
And the last question, I know it doesn't, but I'm still waiting to hear about the economic development position.
Okay, well,
That's under Ron's position.
that'll probably be under HR, I would think, would it not?
They just had a meeting revised, just finished overhauling your ship, so we'll be going out tomorrow morning.
Oh, that's good. Thank you.
Good? Okay, any other questions? Yes?
Discover Charlottetown. What's their role in the downtown at Christmas time? What exactly do they do?
What's their role in downtown at Christmas time?
Yeah.
They are running the Charlottetown Christmas Festival, so it started this past Friday. It also incorporates the Victorian Christmas Market, which will take place this coming weekend on Queen Street and in the Charlottetown Mall. So the Christmas Festival will run for 3 weeks through the 13th of December. You may have seen some of the Whoville characters appear on the Upper Plaza and on Victoria Row last weekend. So that's part of that festival as well.
And the city is a partner, Councillor Twill as well, in that, both of those events. So we have a $6,500 cash investment, which is an annual contribution, and we have in-kind contribution to those events. And we're also involved at times from logistics, but also the creative, sharing of creative events and programs because of the Wintertide Holiday Festival as well.
So, are they involved with the decorations downtown Charlottetown?
The City of Charlottetown, through our Public Works Department, are responsible for the core decor. Some of the decor associated with Whoville and the Christmas market are Discover Charlottetown. Some of them have been put up by our Public Works Department. So you'll see ribbon on the Victoria Row arch as an example. That's a part of Discover Charlottetown's initiative, but our Public Works Department installed.
So who's paying for that?
For the ribbon?
For the product will be paid by Discover Charlottetown,
Discover.
and the city would assist with in-kind implementation of.
So you got both Discover Charlottetown and the City of Charlottetown decorating downtown Charlottetown, right?
Well, I wouldn't say it like that. I would say the city is responsible for the entire downtown core.
Right.
Discover Charlottetown has some decor around where their Christmas market is going to be. And they have for a number of years.
Yeah, no, just trying to get an understanding.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So, thank you.
So just to follow on the Scarecrow, that's, who did a lot of that work? Did
So-
you not hire someone to?
Yeah, so Discover,
Charlottetown?
for Scarecrow, Discover Charlottetown did the organizing, they hired the artists, they paid for the artists. We were a partner, but the city very much was an in-kind contributor as well.
Very successful.
Yeah,
It was very-
there's rarely an event that happens in this city without the city corporation playing an integral role in the event.
So, just to follow, and I appreciate you saying that, Wayne. I kind of knew that, but more specifically, you look at Discover Charlottetown, do we have representation on that board?
We do, it's
You're on
the
that
tourism
board?
office.
Okay, so if you had to break it down, we give a financial contribution, and we also provide services in kind. Is that safe to say?
Yeah.
So who directs, when it comes to services in kind, do they direct our staff?
No, what would happen is we have event guidelines, which are the responsibility of this committee. This committee is the clearance house for events, which is endorsed by council, whether it's financial or in-kind. Once this committee clears the approval of that, then we would go to the core departments who need to implement, and we would arrange a meeting with that particular department. And interestingly enough that you're asking Councillor Twill, the CAO is aware of this, but we're working in the early new year. We will launch a new kind of permit approval form that will include everything that the city corporation gives to that event, whether it's in-kind contribution, financial, who's responsible, etc. Because right now departments are supposed to upload what the value of their in-kind contribution was to finance for annual calculations as a part of our budget considerations. And at times that is and not happening, depending. Departments do their best, but departments are going in 1,000 circles every day. But this will help us get a better inventory of the defined in-kind. But to answer your question, they don't get the direct. Discover Charlottetown doesn't get direct the city departments. The city sits down with them and determines what has to be done, and we say, yes, we can do this, or no, we can't do that.
But the leadership is coming from Discover Charlottetown.
The leadership on, if you're talking about the Victorian Christmas market,
Well, I'm talking about for anything that they,
So they would ask us what they would like to have us do. We would review it with staff to see what we can do, and then we would offer what we can.
but for the most part,
They take the lead.
whatever, yeah, I understand that, but for the most part, Discover Charlottetown gets primarily what they want, and the focus is downtown Charlottetown.
their focus is downtown Charlottetown. They would get what they want, given whatever the city approves. The city has to approve what they get,
I
right?
appreciate that. So, taking a step further, Wayne, we do have an events policy.
We do.
So anyone who wants to put on an event here in the city of Charlottetown,
Yep,
they come, and that is administered through this department.
yep.
Correct?
Event guidelines.
So now, we're gonna take a step further, and we're gonna create a policy for anything that we partner with, I guess partner is the accurate word, and any services in kind, could be public works, could be parks and rec, could be water and sewer, could be police,
Tourism.
pardon me?
Tourism.
Could be staff,
Tourism staff.
Yeah.
So that way, we'll have an accurate account. This committee will be able to review an accurate account of the financial and services in kind, an accurate account of the services in kind, right down to the dollars and cents.
They will, because we're leading the initiative, so it's not a policy, it's a new form that we are creating, which will create a tracking trail, right? 11 traffic trails. So departments, instead of uploading their numbers to finance, they will give them directly to us. So the staff in the event and tourism management will maintain those forms.
Right.
People will sign off, Peter will be one of the signatures, right, and the organizer, representing whoever the organizer is, and we will have them on file and be able to bring them to this committee and give you exact figures.
So will you be able to tell, for example, with the events that are upcoming, Christmas events that are coming up, how much, in terms of, say, police, how much we're going to be spending in police, where we have to have police officers committed to that event?
But police wouldn't be committed to the event outside of their regular jurisdiction. Most of these events that happen would have to hire private security.
Okay, well, whatever financials are committed, we will be able to review it regardless of what the department is.
Yep, we would know that public, like example,
Yeah.
we'll know Public Works put in $6,200, Parks and Recreation was $8,400, I'm just hypothetically
Yeah,
giving you
yeah,
figures,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
And tell you what it costs. And we do have a lot of that for most events now. This will just bring it into a more
Formalized.
formal process.
And that becomes the part of the grant. Anything even in lieu is a grant from the city which we have to document.
So it's 6,500 financial, Peter, help me here. Then we're gonna have an accurate account of how much we contribute in terms of services in kind. So 6,500 really could become,
10,000.
yeah,
Yep.
right? So, well, it is. It is, I mean,
If that's-
it's not just, it's,
If that's the number, yes.
well, that's the number, that's what I'm looking for, Peter. Just looking for an accurate account. I'd like to do a comparison and contrast in financial and services in kind. That gives us a better, true reflection.
Yep, we'll have that.
Yeah.
Oh,
And
thank
we
you.
can do a lot of it today, we can do a lot of that right now. This just formalizes it.
No,
But
no.
there's no
Ed,
straight
hold on.
going over.
Councilor
No.
McLeod?
Oh, yes, there is a port, not for the in-kind services,
No.
but there's a cash grant that has gone to this specific event.
That comes from the CERT fund or from the city itself?
But there'll be both.
Both.
At times there's both.
Okay.
Go ahead,
Again,
sorry.
But
Yeah.
the issue is, even though it's in kind, it's still a grant to that
There's
relationship.
there's a dollar.
Yeah, exactly.
So, a question for Wayne, if I
Yes,
may.
absolutely.
So we had just passed the form here not too long ago, right, the events form that had kind of highlighted a lot of it. So what's different now coming to January?
So Councillor McLeod, what you're referring to is we amended the event guidelines.
Right.
So it was amended to them. It needed some cleaning up. Councillor Tweel at the time was Chair of Parks and Recreation. He wanted the smoking bylaw, included. So it was some cleanup.
Yeah.
So what we're talking about is a new form, an actual form that would be completed for each event. So it creates a hard tracking
Right.
that we maintain within this committee and this department.
More accountability.
Yeah. Oh, no, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so as of today, after an event, I would call Public Works and Park Recreation, whoever, and get their in-kind contributions. And it's only as good as what they're giving at the time. Whereas this case, we'll actually have, right, instead of me writing it down on a sheet, we will have an actual form completed that attracts each event, and you can say, could you pull the contributions we gave to the Shellfish Festival? I'll go pull the form and I can share it with anyone.
Good, thank you. And I just to add, Chair, the process, I think, is working quite well. The wants of what somebody is trying to do and promote, it doesn't necessarily always work with bylaws and regulations, and I see that working really well with Public Works and Parks and getting back to them. I know the wishes, sometimes things just can't be possibly done, but I do know that there's good debate goes on there, what can be done and what can't be done, so that's a good thing. And, but like Councilor Drew said, it'd be nice to have a dollar value on those.
For sure.
Yeah, thank you.
Good. Any other, Councilor Cody, any questions?
Could I just ask, so Councillor McLeod is Chair of Public Works and Beautification. We do the adopt the corners.
Yeah.
So we do services in kind.
Any time for that as well.
Yeah.
Well, there's a lot really, and it's important. that we
And it has a
involve.
good return, right?
Yeah.
City beautifies.
Yeah, and let's face it, with DCI, we're not in the marketing business, You know, so we need someone like DCI to be able to promote the downtown, because at the end of the day, that's where the dollars are coming from. People are coming here, you know, not to see BCA, they're coming here to see the great, the old part of Charlottetown, right? But we all win from it, and I just think, you know, it's concerning. We want to make sure we keep a tight rein on that relationship and keep that. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, public art policy amendments.
Okay, so as I mentioned, the Arts Advisory Board at their October meeting has proposed some recommended amendments to our existing public art policy. So the amendments that they've proposed, they address 3 items. So the first one is they notified that there is currently a conflict between the public art policy and the city zoning and development bylaw with respect to signage regulations, and more specifically with respect to murals in the 500 lots area. So the amendments that they have proposed kind of bring those 2 documents back in line. They also, during COVID, it's become a bit more apparent, but they've encountered some challenges in dealing with some temporary art installations that may come about rather quickly and don't necessarily meet the meeting dates for the Arts Advisory Board. And then also, they just felt that the policy itself, for some people who are trying to do art in the city, may seem like it's a bit cumbersome and negative. So they've requested an introductory paragraph that basically just says that they're there to help and they're there to get more art in the city and they're willing to work with you. I will say that the amendments were given to the manager of planning and heritage just to make sure that there was going to be no further conflicts with their bylaws. He has acknowledged that everything will be in line now, so he sees no reason to not go forward with the amendments. He did mention, though, that they shouldn't take the place of regular consultation, that if a public art piece was going to be installed, we would normally consult with Public Works and with Water and Sewer and things, just so we make sure that, you know, there's not going to be something dug up where we're putting art within the next couple of weeks, or that it's not impeding on the public right of way or snow clearing or things like that. So with these, you'll see that if you flip through the report, the policy itself is the first few pages, which you can skip over if you've already read it. I did highlight on the last few pages that look more like this, the actual changes to the policy itself. So you'll find whatever the current wording is, plus the proposed amendments and what the rationale behind that is. So we can go through them really quickly if you would like to. The first page there is just the introduction of the short, I guess the addition of the short introduction. So just saying that the purpose of the policy is to encourage the creation and presentation of public art in the city. Charlottetown Arts Advisory Board's role is to provide a helping hand to those wanting to make public art happen. So they're requesting that be added to the beginning of the policy. And then if we move forward to the next page, section 2.1 and 2.2, they're adding in, they're defining temporary art as anything that's up for less than 30 days. And what they're proposing is that they don't deal with those. So that would just come to the city as it normally would. So one example was the tree art project that Environment and Sustainability did. That would not need to go to the Arts Advisory Board moving forward because it was up for less than 30 days. It would just, if Environment and Sustainability felt that it had merit and the city was on board with having that installed for that 2 or 3 week period, that would be able to happen. So anything longer than 30 days would be dealt with in the policy, as well as they've added in that murals or signs painted upon a building or structure in a 500 lot area to 2 areas. And then also in 5.1.
What was that section? Just go back. What painting?
Just
buildings?
scroll down, keep scrolling in your document there.
Yeah, number 5.
Keep scrolling past all this.
Oh, you're down at the bottom.
I summarized it separately so you wouldn't have to read
Right
the
down
whole
here.
document. Yeah, so there's the first change,
Yeah.
which is just the intro, and then if you scroll
Keep
ahead
going.
one more page, you'll be able to see.
So, can I ask a question? Just a minute?
Yeah.
So, if the city wants to put up a piece of art
Yeah,
that's going to stay up longer than 30 days, and we have this document in place,
Yeah.
we still have to go through the art? Is that what you're saying, is that everything has to go through this art report?
well, it normally would. Like, the intent of the Arts Advisory Board is to provide recommendations to council on public art.
Right.
So it would, normally the process would be, like, let's say you wanted to put a mural on a building and you had approval for the location, you would come with the concept for the mural to the Arts Advisory Board, they'd review it and say, absolutely, this is great artistic merit, we think it fits well with the city, we're recommending it goes on to economic development for endorsement to send to council. That's basically what happens. My understanding is that it's less of an approval process and more of a process to ensure that we're not sole sourcing. They want to make sure that like there's a good public call for art. If the city's going to invest in art, they just want to make sure that artists in the city or outside of the city have equal opportunity to be able to put forward a proposal. So we end up with the best art possible.
So just on that, Madam Chair, so the follow-up on the public piece of art in the corner of Richmond and Queen, it's for Johnny McDonald. I know I asked for the board to look into it, and they said, well, no, it's.
So for
it
that
falls
one,
under a ballot.
for that one, they don't wish to be involved until there has been a decision as to how we wish to proceed with it. So they feel that it's a political issue right now in that are we going to amend it? Are we not going to? Council has dealt with that. So now the city is dealing with the consultations with the Aboriginal groups to try to determine what we want to do.
Right.
And then if there is to be a change to the artwork itself,
Then we go back to the.
then we could involve the Arts Advisory Board, yes.
And we will be talking about that
Oh, no, I know.
next.
Yeah.
So, Madam Chair, just one point, under 2.2, should we also note that there you have, does not contravene Canadian law, but should we also have not city bylaws or policies in that catch-all as well?
This document does not cover.
On 2.2, Peter?
So they're removing that individuals or organizations may erect any piece of art that does not contravene
Oh,
Canadian
that's
law.
good.
That's coming out altogether.
Yeah, I thought this was a refresh copy.
That's the current wording.
That's
and the
current wording.
proposed
It's not in the
amendment
proposed
wording.
amendment, so my understanding is that they're not proposing that to be carried over.
But whatever does happen, it should adhere to bylaws and policies of the city. So that should be in here somewhere as a catch-all.
Okay.
Are you talking about 2.2?
Yeah.
2.2. Well, it does have a proposed amended word in 2.2.
He's saying that it needs to include that it has to still.
No, I know that.
Yeah, meet our bylaws.
And rationale is there too, right?
Okay, so it needs to meet city bylaws as a catch-all.
Zoning and other bylaws.
Okay. That can be added in at the beginning of the document.
So if I may ask you a question, Chair, Laura, so when did this go to planning for approval?
It didn't go to planning for approval, so the documented changes, I simply sent them along to Alex for review internally because the reason that the amendments are proposed is because the development bylaw, basically you'll see in here that the public art policy said that the Arts Advisory Board had no role in murals. That's what it originally said. And then the planning development bylaw said that any murals in the 500 lots are the jurisdiction of the Arts Advisory Board. So our policy said the Arts Advisory Board has nothing to do with murals, and planning and development said that's our jurisdiction. So they made those talk so that they're saying the same thing. But apart from that, there's not much.
Because as far as I understand, the chair of planning has no idea what this.
There's not really
So I
any
just wonder
changes,
what was
there's not
allowed.
really any changes to planning is the thing. Like, we're not changing, we're taking the wording out of the planning and development bylaw and actually putting it into the public art
Okay.
policy.
Okay.
Yeah,
Cool.
so there's no change on the planning
Right.
end, it's to
Okay.
make the planning document
sense.
actually align with the public art policy.
Good, thank you very
Yeah.
much. That's what I was looking for. Thank you.
So is that everything?
Yeah, just a point of clarification. So number 10, murals and heritage properties.
Yep,
So delete section 10 and renumber section 11.
to section 10.
And so murals on private property and heritage private Right side.
Yeah, so this is what it originally said, except the planning and development bylaw then assigned the role of murals in 500 lots to the Arts Advisory Board.
They're taking it out.
So they're taking this out and they've included murals under the scope of the document for the 500 lot area only.
To be responsibility of the Arts Advisory or Zoning Development?
Arts Advisory Board. So the process, like if someone proposed a mural in the 500 lots, the typical process would be that there has to be consultation with Todd Saunders to ensure that it's not a heritage designated building.
So this will allow them not to go to Todd?
No, it would, the same process would be followed. It just, you know, typically, if the public art policy stays the way it is, the Arts Advisory Board has no role in murals, period, in the city. If a mural comes forward, it only needs to go to planning,
So the
which
wall,
kind of contradicts the point of having a
the
public art
outside
policy.
wall, facade of the guild on the south side, there's a large space there.
Yeah,
And there, I think the guild is asking to put a piece of art. Does that fall under murals?
it's not painted, so planning has not deemed it to be a mural, and the Arts Advisory Board agrees it's not a mural, it's poster. So that's where we've gotten into the weeds on that.
With this change in the policy?
No.
An isolated issue. Has to be.
Oh, I'm sure one of them are.
Yeah.
Okay.
Other questions?
Any questions for Laurel on the public art policy? Okay.
Okay.
Letter D, the Sir John A. Macdonald consultation.
So
Does that kind of
this-
go with D and E together?
Yeah, so D and E are kind of, it's kind of an A and a B, but we separated them to make the conversation a little bit easier. So we just wanted to provide an update to this committee on the status of the consultations, which is going to be this first report. So as everyone is aware, on June 25th, Council unanimously passed a resolution to leave the statue of Sir John A. in its current location, but agreed that appropriate stakeholders would be brought together to have consultations on how that statue, and more particularly the plaque of the statue, could be amended to tell a more balanced story of Sir John A.'s legacy than is currently there. So once that resolution was passed, a meeting was held on July 14th between city officials and representatives from Illinois and the Mi'kmaq Confederacy of PEI. The key takeaways from that meeting were we agreed we'd all go away, that we would draft the terms of reference for the actual consultation group, so we had a clear plan going forward, and then also that we would issue a joint communique so that the media requests that were being fielded, there would be a consistent answer put forward from all organizations that consultations were underway and a conversation was happening. After that meeting, Illinois and Mi'kmaq Confederacy went back and they had a conversation with their chiefs, so they notified the city on July 28th that they were still awaiting direction on how involved they would actually be in that consultation process. So we kind of put the brakes on the terms of reference until we heard back from them. The mayor received a letter, and I believe all of council received a copy of that letter as well on October 14th. If you did not receive a copy, we'll get you a copy of the letter after this meeting. But it came from Illinois on behalf of Chief Junior Gould and Chief Darlene Bernard, who are co-chairs of the Epiquette Assembly of Councils. So they offered a number of recommendations on how the statue could be revised in its current location to offer that more balanced telling of Sir John A.'s legacy. And they requested at that time that the statue's intention currently as a photo opportunity be reset to remove the photo opportunity and instead serve as an educational opportunity. So they're not fond of the selfie aspect of that particular piece of art. So on October 28th, we had a meeting with the third group that had been included in the resolution, the Native Council of Prince Edward Island. And they also agreed that would be something that they would want to see. They want that photo opportunity removed, and they'd like to see it removed sooner than later. So they're going to come back to the consultation group internally sometime in January with more recommendations on how they would like to see us proceed with that particular piece of art. But our chair did agree at the meeting that we would take forward a recommendation for installing some temporary signage at the art, just indicating that A conversation is ongoing, so we'll get into that in a bit more detail in the next report. We also circulated a draft terms of reference following that meeting to the Native Council as well as Onaway and the Mi'kmaq Confederacy, so that was circulated November 4th. And Doug requested feedback at that time that could be incorporated before it goes to Council Advisory Committee to be endorsed or not. So he hasn't received any specific feedback on the terms of reference to date as of this morning. But we did agree that once the terms of reference have been amended to everyone's agreement and that have also been endorsed by Council Advisory Committee, we would reconvene a meeting earlier in 2021 with all parties around the table to kind of chart that path forward.
You want to ask a question right now, or?
Well, no, whenever she's done.
Yeah.
That piece,
You go right
yeah,
ahead.
sure.
Good. A little concerned. I mean, if you read the original resolution, I mean, nowhere does it say that the photo opportunity is taken away. Nowhere does it say there's a terms of reference going to be created. So I'm a little concerned we should send this back to council before we go anywhere. Council decided that on a 10-0 vote, right? That-
I think that's what we're gonna get to in the next part, Councillor McLeod, is looking at, based on, we can't do nothing.
The next part is out of whack as well. But,
It would be
Well,
discussion here
yeah,
to
and
go
this
to
committee
council.
can decide
Yeah.
that maybe you don't wish for that to go forward at this time to council, and that's this committee's decision. But the request, we committed to bringing the request forward for discussion because all three parties in the consultation, that they're all in agreement on that one item, so.
But at the end of the day, John A. McDonald is everybody's prime minister, right? And there's a lot of people who should have say in this. Just, you know, what we were asking is for them to tell their story. Right? At no time do I see where it says we're going to change the art and we're going to move it. And I just think we got way ahead of ourselves here. And not that I'm against it, just there's a resolution, and none of what we're talking about in here is regarding in here. So if
Just
we
for
are going to go down-
clarification, is that their biggest insults on all three groups that we agreed to sit with and look how we can move towards a more of a reconciliation moving forward. For all three groups, the most insulting piece, I mean, some of them still don't want them there, right? That would be their A. And we're looking on a good solid plan B of where are we and what are we willing to do to work collaboratively on this reconciliation piece. And they do find that piece very insulting. And it's not to say the sign's going to be there forever. It's more of a sign that we are going to look at where are we going moving forward, in my understanding. Would you have said that,
Yeah,
Jason,
I
you were
would.
there as well? Would you have gotten that message from the meeting? So it's just a discussion today, it's not,
But it's sort of, if you're going beyond the council motion, you should go back to council just to reaffirm whatever it is you want to do and get them to reaffirm that.
before we discuss coming back with a recommendation?
No, not discussing, before any action is taken.
Oh, 100%, this is the initial.
Whatever you recommend to council, then they need to reaffirm your guys' approach.
100%. I think that's what we were looking at today, is coming up with our own little, starting small as a committee, what do we want to see? And then coming to council, moving forward. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's what I understood.
Well, I guess my point is that, you know, we're talking about a term of reference, and I don't see anywhere where council has approved a term of reference. It's council advisory is not mentioned in this term of reference. You know,
Yeah,
we're asking, I think the resolution is more or less saying, tell your story, right? But
But I agree
now all of
with-
a sudden, we're talking about moving it, and we're talking about not making a photo opportunity anymore.
No discussion of
There's no
moving it.
discussion on moving it.
No discussion
Well,
on
I'm
moving it.
pretty sure in your, you know, your junior rules.
I'd really like to.
Yes, they want it moved, but it was made very clear in both meetings that happened that council has already given their direction that the statue is staying where it is. So we need to have consultations on if it's staying where it is, what can we do to move towards reconciliation with the piece in its current location?
Yeah.
We recognize that they would prefer to not have it there at all, but that's not an option that this council is willing to discuss at this time.
I agree with Councilor McLeod, because Councilor McLeod, you and I were at the initial meeting, right, with Onaway and the Mi'kmaq Confederacy, correct? And at that meeting, we asked for a terms of reference, correct?
Oh, sorry, no, Kevin Ramsey was your.
You weren't on the
No,
committee.
not that.
So we
I
did
know
ask,
me, but-
we did ask for the terms of reference. Councilor Twill was there.
But I think council,
You
but
were
I
the
think
meeting.
council since that said no.
That was a subcommittee of the
Yeah.
committee.
Yeah.
It was a subcommittee,
Which
right?
included,
It was yourself, it was Councillor Yankoff, Councillor
Councilor
Ramsey.
Ramsey.
and
which was a
then-
subcommittee of the economic development.
Yeah.
Yeah, so then, at that point, we asked, let's do the terms of references. So we still don't have a copy of the terms of references.
The terms of reference were circulated to all parties November 4th by
Right,
Doug.
so we're waiting, let's,
Yeah.
that's why I think we're getting ahead of ourselves. Let's establish the boundaries of how we're gonna work together. And just to give you a little bit of updated information, I had a call from someone who's trying to act as an intermediary between the Oldaway and the Mi'kmaq Confederacy and the city, because they don't recognize that they have to work with the Native Council, NCPEI, because they're not a governing body. We were told at the first meeting, Oldaway and the Mi'kmaq Confederacy are governing bodies. So they are in a position to negotiate with government to government and so forth. So I think that, you know, when I saw this on the agenda, I said, okay, temporary, but Lisa reacted to, when we made reference to the letter from Oldaway and the Mi'kmaq, for Oldaway, that that's when she realized that there was a request to ask for signage. Because she didn't receive that letter.
She didn't receive the
Oldaway
letter,
didn't send it to her.
but Bradley presented on that temporary signage before they knew the letter had been received.
Correct. I'll
Present
So
those-
they, in the last meeting, he referenced the city of Regina's signage as being an appropriate stopgap measure, and then we notified them that the same request had been made
Yeah, and I
in
think
the
you
letter.
stated from the letter.
I didn't have a copy of the letter, I didn't even know it existed
Well,
until I
someone
got in
stated,
there.
because that's how the discussion went, that it's, Oldaway has suggested signage to indicate that this is not to be used as a photo op. But we don't have the terms of references in place
I
yet.
think it was a stoppage to say we're working
It's a
on
stopgap.
all these
Okay.
as a respect. It's a sign of respect.
But we are respecting the whole process because we've opened the dialogue. We haven't shut the door. Like, the special committee, the subcommittee that was set up from economic development, we've been working on this since June. It's not like we've closed the door, and we want to work together, but if we step ahead of ourselves before we find out, what are we actually going to do? Because
It was just to indicate that conversations were
the reason I
happening.
say that, because there's $90 million being spent on Province House to restore that. And Phantom Studios are looking at a design for the landscape around that area. So this could be an opportunity to maybe provide a permanent space for the Sir Johnny MacDonald. And you know what? Sitting next to him could be George Coles, who was one of the fathers of Confederation. Because
That's longer range planning. I
But-
think
but-
this
but-
was just to indicate for now,
No, no,
because
I-
it was
no, I
very
understand
important to
that.
the three
But I
groups.
think we have to get the rules of engagement in place.
You guys are deciding. I don't even
Oh,
vote
it
in this
comes to
committee.
that, you vote.
But if I
Yeah,
may,
what comes
if
to- I know what I
may
don't.
just say that if I recall under council advisory as chair, this came to the committee and we said the terms of reference part, and we said, no, that doesn't fit the resolution. If we want to start that, then we need to change this resolution, but at no time did council advisory promote where we're going now.
But what would be the purpose of meeting with three groups if we weren't going to look at doing something?
We are,
But
we're
there's
waiting
no
for them
goal.
to get back to us, like, they're like, right, but, you know, I just, like, there's two sides to every coin, but John A. MacDonald is a controversial piece, but that's what makes it a photo op, right? And now you're gonna take that away, which is not what we're, and if we do, that's fine, if council wants to do that, I have no trouble with it, but that's not what our resolution says, and I'm just saying we gotta stick to what we created, and we created is that we want to open up a dialogue, which we have, and then,
So when we dialogue though, if things come back, are we not allowed to take recommendations from,
until all three parties are kind of on the same page.
they were with this piece? This
Right.
one piece was the signage, which if you look at the next part, which Laurel has
Yeah.
just some wording to say the conversations have started. It's not to
But
say,
you're taking away the public art part, the photo op. in that signage, it says to take away the photo. And that's not what we were asking. We were asking for them to tell their story,
Okay.
right?
But
Right?
that's what we're working towards, would be that piece, I would think. I don't know.
It's up to the committee. Like, I
Absolutely.
simply wrote the report because
Oh, I know.
I was asked to bring it.
I was the
forward.
one that wanted the meeting information brought forward.
But it's not
because
my
I-
decision at the end of the day, it's a decision of this committee. So if
Absolutely.
the committee feels that we've stepped outside the bounds and that's not something that you want to discuss at this time, that's the committee's right.
Yep, absolutely.
Like, so, like, in that report, right, it says the city's logo could read, okay, and it states right there that the public park should be taken out, but until that gets approved, we shouldn't be putting it in. Okay? In recognition of that Sir John A.'s vision of Canada include progressive policies resulting in significant intergenerational trauma for Indigenous peoples across the nation, this artwork's interactive photo opportunity has been removed.
Yes, meaning you would no longer be able to sit
Right.
beside John A. and take a selfie.
Well, that's not what this is. That's my argument.
The resolution.
The resolution.
The resolution says he's staying where he is.
We've asked for them to tell their story.
The resolution
We
doesn't
have
say
not
that
asked
either.
for stuff to be removed.
I
or-
agree.
Like, it's a free world. If someone wants to take a photo, who are we to, or who's going to monitor and police it?
But I don't think that it is necessary, it wasn't put there, was it, for the intent of photo op? Was that why he was there?
Yes.
Oh, it was?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
That was the intent of it.
So, I think, I don't know, I'm just bringing up things, I don't care where the committee goes, but I really think that it really should go back to council for sure.
I think we all care where it goes.
Yeah.
It's like at the last meeting, I talked about what they had in Sydney, Nova Scotia, in recognition, a monument in memory of students of the residential schools. And it was action 82 in the Truth and Reconciliation Report, that every capital of territories and provinces erect, construct a memorial in memory of students at the residential schools. And that's, I thought.
But that would be moving forward, because right now we're
Yeah.
still back on the
Well,
John
I
A.
would like-
McDonald
No,
statute.
But that's moving forward. You know.
Well, it is, that's part of where I see the resolution or the terms of reference as we continue. This is a really brief, in my opinion, like when I said we bring it to committee, it's a very small gesture of saying we're working on conversations. And you know, it is important, I think, that we do, like, look at how we are gonna work collaboratively and together with these three groups.
You've done a good job, you've got the dialogue on. So why not go the other route? Why not, like, say, well, how can we make this piece of art open so that everybody would want to take a picture?
Well, I think that's, hopefully, the long-range goal would be that. I think it's in the
But they have something
interim.
there to say, no, you can take pictures, say, that's not, like, let's be positive here, let's.
And I guess it look, depend on what lens you look at it, right? If you're
Right.
their group, they're probably saying if this is really insulting and really offensive for their groups,
But-
is it worth, and I mean, that's the catch
So just
22
for clarity,
question.
Madam Chair, says that the, over and above that, the statute stays in play, that the city bring the appropriate stakeholders together, which you've done, to determine best steps forward, so to recognize that not the full story be told in a particular involved venue in the group. So it is that plaquing or the, whatever
Yeah.
you're doing to tell that part of the story. So anything beyond that, unless there's more, it should go back to council just to reaffirm that you're on the right track.
And that's what I
Yeah,
tried to do.
that's it for me.
So how we do that.
And I don't think we want to move it up to that stage yet, right, up to that level, up to council. I think, like, Councilor McCabe, the discussion has only begun. Like,
I'm aware.
just remember the Mi'kmaq had been here for 12 to 15,000 years. Like, this discussion has to build on what we started. And I think that's what the subcommittee, the subgroup was doing, was let's get together, like the terms of reference should incorporate what do we want to do in memory of students at the residential schools. I'm sure some of the students on Prince Edward Island went to Shubenacadie.
But
You
that's
know,
not part of- that's not.
That's, it isn't,
No,
yeah, I know.
no,
It's-
but my point is that, like, as you said earlier, that's down the road, but let's get a framework in place through our terms of references, how we want to go forward. And that may be it may include in that terms of references, that any any recognition of Sir John A. Macdonald as a tourist attraction must be given, there must be a warning sign about his past. Like, that is what we have. We have to make sure we have all the rules, the same rules for Onaway, the Mi'kmaq Confederacy, and NCPEI, and the city of Charlottetown.
And that's, I'm not saying that I disagree with either of you. I guess from my understanding in the meeting, what I understood, it was just a means to say we are, I mean, if you look at the actual, what Laurel had provided from Regina, it's just to say that we're in discussions. It's just to validate to them that we are serious about moving forward to have discussions. And
Well, we are
If
serious.
you're posting that sign,
Yeah.
that should go to council.
100, I agree. That's what it was, do we want to? And if the committee doesn't, that's okay. This was just based on the results of our meeting.
I'm just trying to keep the discussions going because it started in June. We have a long way to go. And I know we want some intermediate results or intermediate actions, but let's try to get the framework in place for all three groups. Onaway, Mi'kmaq Confederacy, NCPEI are on board with what we want to plan, short-term, mid-term, long-term. And I don't think, by putting this out there with what's being proposed is only, to me, I don't think it's going to be in the collective good for all of us to go so quickly. Let's take our time.
I wasn't going anywhere quick other than to
But
indicate
no,
the discussions.
this is
Okay, when I brought
this
it
is not
up.
personal. This is just
Oh,
what's on the agenda.
It's definitely not. I just think, I think we need to be more open and we need to be open to where do we want to go and how are we going to, I don't think discussions are great and they can continue, but you do have to start to move in some direction, I think, but that's my own opinion. Councillor Cody, do you have any input? I feel like Mayor Brown here putting other people on the spot. Councillor Twill?
No, excuse me, Madam Chair. No.
No, I mean calling people out for.
No.
Put your mask on.
I think, I agree with the councillor, McLeod, about what's being discussed. It's not about calling people out. All it is that this is a discussion that we want to move forward on. And I think time is on our hands.
Okay, so what we'll
That's
do
what I'm
is
saying.
respond back to the groups to just say that we feel that the terms of reference need to be established prior to moving anything forward. Is that what the committee's saying wants
That's
to
what I'm
happen?
saying.
Is that okay?
Along
Is that
with
going
it,
to
just-
council?
Yeah,
Okay, you good with that?
yeah.
And you only have to go to council if you're changing that approach, Madam Chair.
Yes, yeah, no, and that's fine. I did my part, I said I'd
No,
bring it up.
but the
and
part is
that's-
only beginning.
right.
Somebody started.
Yeah, oh, and I agree.
More to come.
So we'll just
Yeah.
defer that until our terms of reference, then maybe we can, do we need a motion to defer anything there? No? Okay, so that's for the record, that will be,
Information from now, Madam Chair,
Okay.
just to receive this information.
sure, once we can get our terms of reference, we'll bring it back.
Do we have a definite group that's gonna meet, that's?
Well, that's what
a
we're working
subcommittee?
on.
Have we really done that? So,
I think that's gonna come out of the terms of reference, if I understood
Is that
that correctly. Would that
certain
be right,
positions?
Laurel?
It's Laurel's hand.
Laurel, sorry.
Yeah, so it has, I mean, we've had 2 meetings to date. It's historically been the chair of this committee. The mayor has attended. Anyone else on this committee has been invited to attend. I know that, that Deputy Mayor Cody was at the last meeting and Councillor Yankoff has attended both meetings that we've had. I've attended from the cultural file side of the city, and then the mayor had Doug attend to take notes as well at the last meeting, so.
No, I just thought that we want to put positions to the actual, and any council member can go, but should we
Yeah.
have like definitely the economic chair should be there. and,
Councillor Yankoff, just with the downtown connection and her work, has been a good asset to have there, in my opinion. And of course, people that are, I think it's good for people to, in our committee, because this is our committee, so. You were invited, I think you were out with
Yes, I
your
wasn't
surgery
available,
or
but I
something.
was
yeah.
there.
Just on clarification with respect to your terms of reference comment about short, mid, long term. So the terms of reference, the way that they've been drafted currently is specific only to this piece of art, because that's the only direction that we've been given from council, is with relation only to the single piece of artwork. Is that still how we wish to proceed?
Did you include in the terms of references that the short term would be to put a sign there? That's not in there.
There's nothing, all that it
approved.
says is basically that we would work with the groups in a consultative process to determine the best path forward. There's nothing specific about how that could take place.
Yes, so.
Yeah, but I just mean that if you're talking about a larger reconciliation effort apart from this statute, that is not currently reflected in the terms of reference.
Well,
Because that's not a direction that has been given by
No.
council.
So let's see where we can go with the terms of preferences with the 3 groups. Because we already heard from 2 groups. They were supposed to go with the Chiefs, Owen Away.
And they came back with their recommendations
back
in the
with their
letter, and they're pulled out now.
recommendations. Yeah,
Is what
and
they've indicated.
Yeah, so they pulled out. So really, when we meet, we'll only be meeting with MCBEI.
And they have committed to coming back in January with
That's it.
their own recommendations.
So Owen Away, Mi'kmaq, Confederacy, they've said their piece, they're done. And I would hope that we could bring them together, and that's why with this intermediary, maybe we can work something with that.
That'll be between their groups, really.
Yeah,
That was-
amongst the 3.
Yeah.
But leave it as is, and then we'll just work with that for
I
now.
think so.
So we get,
That's fine.
So can we get back to them to let them know that it's deferred at least? Because they knew that this was going to be a topic.
Yeah,
Whether
so
they do.
should we just have Doug continue the line of communication? He's been, since he took
Yeah.
over from Jill as the point person on who's been communicating with them. So if you'd like him to communicate that their request went forward, but until we finalize the terms of reference, the committee has requested that this be deferred.
Deferred. You good, everybody comfortable with that, right?
Very good.
Okay.
Right. All right. So I'm going to get a motion to move into closed section for section 119.1, subsection B of the PEI Municipal Government Act. Oh, sorry, forgot about your monument for
so
Holiday.
the hockey memorial, I brought this up with Wayne. And if you go to Kirkland Lake, Ontario, they call it the Northern Hockey Museum. Anyways, it was brought to my attention that, the city has had some great NHL major junior hockey players that came from the city. And speaking to Wayne said that he might, if it's okay with the committee, is to look at this Kirkland Lake Hockey Museum and just, again, it's not to replicate or repeat what's going on with Sports PEI or the Hall of Fame in Somerset. It's not going against that, okay? It's just something that's related to the city of Charlottetown and the great hockey players that we had come from this city. And not just, you can go back to the old Maritime Hockey League that Mark Ledwell's father coached or was part of, and taking buses from Charlottetown to Halifax in the 40s and the 50s. It's just to get a sense of if this is something that we want to do.
So, would it be possible to consult with the Summerside group? And we don't want to, I think consultation's good, like we always say, right? But I think, we could be stepping on some toes there.
It's PEI Hall, Sports Hall of Fame.
Sports Hall, they take it pretty darn serious, right? And they do a wonderful job. So I think we should, whether it's a Charlottetown version of players, or, because once you get into recognizing all the Islanders, well then you're getting into their territory.
Yeah.
But I do know, like, Hockey Legends group, they're very, Chris Redlock brings Ray Bork here just, on a regular basis, and a bunch of other former NHLers, right? And it's all part of that Hockey Legend now. So it's something else again. I'm not sure when we, but I know Ray Bork's here every year for fundraising, and that he just struck off a connection, so he brings a bunch of NHL down. So they would have great input into this and how that could help take it off, really work. So Chris Redlock would be the name that I would put to help.
Chris is with the
Hillside.
Lions Club?
No, yeah, Lions Club, yeah. And, he's got great connections with the Lions Club. We buy NHL jerseys every year. We get them out, and we if you came to the Lions Club looking for support, we'd say, well, you want to auction off, you might be a Chicago, it could be a Toronto, it could be a Miami, somebody from Paxton here would auction off, and the money would stay with you. It's, so there is an activity of Hockey Legends here. I think it's probably a good idea.
So we, staff can research the project in Kirkland Lake to find out more about it and then bring it back to the committee for further direction.
Okay. Councillor Twill?
First, let's see what it is we're actually
looking
dealing
at.
with.
Well, one thing to keep in mind too, Wayne, is as you know, at the Civic Center, we have a room
Memorabilia
dedicated
room.
where all the hockey legends are showcased, right? That room, I mean, there was money spent in that room, the trophy case. I think Danny Redmond was instrumental in that, when that trophy case was first established. So, there's a lot of good work that's already been done there now. I think you gotta take all that into consideration.
Yeah.
The other thing you gotta take into consideration is Bobby McMillan's,
Wall of Fame.
Wall of Fame.
And that's the other, and I thought of that up at the sports page.
Bob, you know, I mean, to his credit, to Bobby's credit, he started documenting, I guess for lack of a better description, documenting players that went on to play in the NHL and the Old Timers League. And Bob's done a lot of work there.
Is that still up there, Councilor Tree?
I believe it is. Now, I haven't.
So we'll start with
So-
looking at what it is, yeah.
So-
and then-
Before, you know, you look at that, I think you gotta look at how much money was invested in the room that's dedicated at the Civic Center. I mean, a lot of money was spent there, there was people involved in that, like, Billy Mulligan,
Wayne McDougal.
Wade McDougal, was a teacher taught down at St. Jean's for a long time.
Donnie Murney,
Donnie Murray.
Donnie Murgian.
Alan O'Keefe.
So, Jeannie Power,
Yeah.
right? All those guys were instrumental and heavily involved. I even think, not sure if Dookie McDougal was involved, but there was a whole group of those guys, been around for a long, long time. And you gotta take into consideration all the work that they've done, because they have carved out the path. And I think you need to talk with them.
Yeah,
as
we
to
do.
what they've done. You know what I'm saying, Wayne? And you would see that.
Yeah, we do for sure.
You know.
And that, to your point, Councilor Twill, the city was heavily involved, so all of those cabinets that are out there.
Yeah.
I wrote a proposal to ACOA to secure that funding for them at the time.
That's right.
Yeah.
And I remember poor Danny.
Maybe do a better
geez,
job
at the time,
promoting it.
You know, poor Danny at the time, he got mad at me because I kept bringing up $75,000 for the trophy case and he got annoyed with me. But anyway, but there was money spent there and Peter wouldn't have a look at it. And then, of course, the Wall of Fame, you got the sports
That's a good-
page.
That's a good idea.
You know, I mean, there's 1,000 pictures up there.
Yeah,
There's gotta be 1,000
We
pictures.
could maybe do a celebration to promote it.
for sure. Your worship, do you know, is this in Kirkland Lake, is it a statue or is it a museum?
It is a museum. If you go
It's a
to
museum, okay.
Kirkland Lake Hockey Museum,
Okay.
just go to images, you can see it.
Okay.
And it's called the Northern Hockey Museum, so
Okay.
they represent all the northern
The North.
NHL players.
Perfect. When you come
But
back
I
with
think
something.
what Councilor Twill said, that Wall of Fame, I know the sports page is still open, but geez, we could get someone, look at how they might want to take that or incorporate it into the museum out of the Eastlink Center too. It's good beyond.
No.
Anyways, that's good.
Okay.
All right, so now
Thank you.
we will, no, good. Now we'll move into a closed session as per section 119.1 subsection B of the PEI Municipal Government Act. Thank you. Second? Yeah, somebody. Thank you.